Welcome back. It is Bones. And I did promise that I would repaint the head of the Parallax Hal Jordan. I also said I would give you guys some tips on how I did it. And of course, I am not perfect, but I am a big stickler for details. Now, although this figure is basically a 10 out of 10 for me, I know a lot of people would say that it was missing a little bit to make it a 10 figure. Of course, some alternate hands, and also the head was not painted correctly. But all in all, really beautiful figure. Really digging this figure, the materials, the articulation. I went through all that when I did my review. But we are here to take a look at the repaint that I did. Not much to do, but it does give the figure a little bit more pop. So let's go ahead and take a look at it. All right, first things first, I did pop off the head. The peg came out with it, so I did take out that double ball peg from the head. I found a random, old brush, and that fit perfectly inside the hole, and that's how you want to have it. Just to make it easier to paint, easy access, and then you can always stick it in something, that way it just sits up, it won't lean over and lose any paint or get messed up. So that's usually what I do, is I put it on an old brush stick. Now, of course, first I said he did look up originally, but not too much, very little. So we did mod out the neck hole. I did take the Dremel and make a little, divot in the back of the neck, and that allows for the head to go up a little bit higher. You just have to slip it right behind the collar, and it will, look up better. Give it a little bit of more range. And then we did tackle the head. Now, first off, my ears were a little bit messed up. So one of the first things I saw was that one of the ears was it had like a little bump in it, and it was not round. So what I did there is I did warm it up with a heat gun, and then I used this little probe to shape it into a rounder shape and not knock that little pimple that it had, knock it out. Now that came out really nice. The ear was, perfectly round. Now another thing that I wanted to hit before I started with the hair was that around the ears, they weren't painted, exactly the same. So I had to mix up some skin tone, and then I touched up around the ear just to make it equal on the left and right side. And it did come out, make the ears a little bit more matching. And one had a lot more of a sideburn than the other one did. So I went ahead and touched that, just to get it more symmetrical, because, as I say, I am all about the details. So once we got that in, the first thing I wanted to do was hit the top of the hair. Now, of course, this figure had pretty much jet black hair, but it was matte. So it wasn't like a shiny, glossy black paint. It was more of a matte, maybe semi-gloss, but I'd say it was more of a matte black. And of course, you want to hit it with some brown, some lighter tones of brown, and maybe even some orange in there. Now, the reason you do this is because when you look at something, it's never one color. Even if you look at an orange, it's not all orange. There's hints of white and yellow in there. If you really look at the details of the whole orange, you'll never have a completely orange, colored orange. It'll have different tints of orange and different shadows and things. So what you want to do is hit it with different colors to replicate that kind of realism, of the paintwork. So first I did a darker brown, because I knew this was just my base coat to get the hair ready and to have the other paint have something to grab onto. Now, one thing you want to do before you even start doing that is you want to wipe it with a little bit of rubbing alcohol just to get it clean, so that the paint has a little bit more grip on it. But then once you do that, you actually heat it up a little bit. I use my heat gun just to heat it up to where when you touch it, it's hot to the touch, and that kind of preps it to grab onto the paint a little bit better. And that kind of preps it to grab the paint a little bit better. I've just noticed that when I do that, the paint just grabs on, and it's really hard to like scrape it off or to peel it off. So you hit it with the brown, as I did here. Now at first I kind of went over and I went into where the white was gonna be for the grain of the hair, but I didn't care because I knew I was gonna paint over it, and that still gives it something to grab onto. So just nonchalantly, painted it with the brown. Then we did get some chestnut brown, a little bit of yellow, like I just had a couple of colors on there to mix up, and then you start lightly putting in like where the brown didn't really sit well, right? So now you're highlighting where the brown didn't hit, and that'll give you like highlight points in the hair, right? So that's your second, passing of paint. Now you have minimal black little spots in there where neither of the paints got, not the dark brown or even the light brown. And then I went ahead and did some orange with a little bit of brown, but it was more like of a lighter, lightish brown color. And I went in and hit all the little spots remaining that didn't really have any paint. And actually you just, free flow it and just put it where you would think it would go. Now once I did all this, I went down the brush and started blending it in to where, you make it all blend in. So now when you look at it, he has that dark brown at the bottom, like underneath, and then a little bit of lighter brown streaks. And then in the end, even on top, you have some really light, almost blonde little tips there. And that's how you paint, the top of the hair to get it brown. So once I had all this done, then all I had to do was do the grain. Now he did have grain already in the back, which is how they painted it, but I wanted to go a little bit more whiter. But you don't want to go completely white, like just white, like a ghost. So what you do first is you mix up some gray with white. That way it's like a lighter dusting, right? And it's kind of the same principle as how we did the top. First you do that gray and just like leach it in like around. Any little missteps, you could always go back and retouch it, so don't worry about it. And then once I got all that gray in and I let it dry a little bit, then I did a more white mixture that's predominantly white. And then I just dusted that in at the sideburns and got really in there with a little brush and just really got in there to all the details around the ears and made my line that I wanted to make. I kind of followed the line that was there from the original gray that the factory put in, but I did go a little bit lower just to like blend it in. And once you get that all done, you let it sit for a bit to let it dry. Sometimes I put them in front of a fan, but for this, since it's just the head, I just waited a little bit. I was actually working on something else. But once you come back to it, then you really get in there and clean up all the little details. Maybe you had a little bit of skin that you overpainted, so you get in there with some flesh tone and paint that. Maybe you have a little bit of gray that's too high, so you paint that with some brown. All the little finishing details just to clean it up. That's what you want to do at the very end. So then now he was ready. I was really happy with it. It actually took me it took me twice because I kind of messed up a little bit and I had to go back again and mix and blend it in from where the gray goes into the brown, just to make it a smooth transition. But it actually came out really nice. Now the last thing I did, I had to add something else just to give it a little bit more, pizzazz. And what I did is I did get my metallic silver. I have a couple of them here. This one. Metallic silver. Now these are Mondos. I get these at Target. And I just went in and lightly colored in and just lightly colored in anything that was silver. And this gives it a little bit more of like a mirror. You could kind of see the reflection in there. It's not perfect like chrome, but it's pretty silver. And then once I did any lines that had that on the edge of the gloves and even on the hands, and then those around the belt, the waist, and then these like ovals here on the legs. Once I did all of that, then you don't want to you do not want to touch it anymore at all, and just let it dry. Now I did learn a big trick a long time ago, and that is if you have a really nice little fan that actually blows air, that goes a long way in drying a lot of things. Some things that would take you 24 hours to dry, you paint it up or even glue anything like that, and you set it right in front of that fan, and it'll pretty much reduce the wait time. You could just keep checking it until you see, it's stiffened up or it's cured. And that's how I've actually been able to paint a lot of things faster, is by using that little circular fan to like dry things. So that's just the tip. You guys do with it what you will, but really happy with this guy. Now he's going on the shelf. Uh, some pretty much shelf candy. Looks really nice, and I'm happy with it. Love the way the hair came out. Love the highlight of the silver there. But you guys keep hunting out there, keep collecting, keep customizing, and I will see you on the next one.